Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nakia, and in today's video I wanted to do a follow-up video to our SQL series. In the last video I mentioned that you should not do a select all, but I wanted to kind of like explain the reason why we typically don't do a select all from the database when we're writing our code in SQL. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first, the databases are a shared resource. You are not the only one writing a query. Think of it like your Wi-Fi at home. If you have multiple devices connected, when there's one device connected, you may have a fast, or you'll probably notice that your speeds are a lot faster. But if you have 10 to 15 devices or 20 connected at once, you may notice a slowness in your internet speeds. That can also happen in the databases. Like for example, on Mondays when I come into the office, everyone's trying to fix, their code or jobs that may have failed over the weekend. Everyone's running their reports for the beginning of the week. Everyone's putting a strain on the database, and that can cause slowness. And one of the things you want to do is to optimize your code so that you're not contributing to putting a strain on the database. Now, there are some settings that's already in place to help limit the strain that you put on the database. Your company may do this or the tools that you're using may have like a default setting. For example, in Teradata, if I were to do a select all, there is a default setting to limit my results to come back with only 2,000 rows of data. Now, that is a setting you can override. Like it may say, do you want to bring back just the 2,000 rows? You can hit yes or no. So if you hit no, then it's going to bring back all of the rows in that table that you're querying, which, depending on how many rows of data in there, like the database admins may come in and cancel that job. Those are things that companies have in place if you're not optimizing your query. And one of the things that my company does is you can't scan an entire table because a lot of these have millions of records, or aka rows of data in them as well, and also so many columns. Like there's been tables that have 200 plus columns of data. So you don't want to put a strain on resources and prevent others from being able to run their code. In addition, depending on what service your company is using, they may be paying for what you're querying. Like with Google Cloud, or cloud services, they may be paying for whatever data you're querying, how much space that's taking up. You may pay on a per megabyte, kilobyte basis. So that can all vary. And those are things that you want to be mindful of. Like one, optimize your query so that they run faster so that you can get your results back and you're not just sitting there for 10-15 minutes waiting for something to run because your query is not efficient, like your code isn't efficient and optimized to run faster. And one of the things, again, you don't want to do a select all, but let's go ahead and look at what that looks like. So what I'm going to do is just for one of the tables that's here, I'm going to just do select all from this Austin waste table. And in SQL, this was commented on before, with SQL, unlike Python, you can just select the portion of the code that you want to run. Like if you run it, it's not going to run everything. If you highlight a certain portion of your code, it will just run the selected portion, which is something I like about SQL. So let's go ahead and run this. So we can see that this table is showing that it has 740,000 rows of data. But one of the things that we can optimize and limit our results that we return is, one, we can limit it to the 2,000. Again, in Teradata, this is a default setting for us. Again, you can change it or override it, but that's the default setting. And you'll see it's only pulling back the 2,000 rows of data that I requested. And the thing with this, though, is it typically caches your results, which means that every time you run this limit 2,000, it's going to bring you back the same 2,000 rows of data. So a way around that is, like, if you need a random sample, you can do the table sample. You can use a table sample, which or a random option, I believe is what it's called in Teradata, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I use, just to get a random selection of rows, because you may be working on your code, and because your results are cached, like it's just going to keep bringing back the same results for you. When you may notice something is an error when you run it, right? Or something is wrong, and you adjust your code to fix it, and you run that same statement again, and it brings you back the same cache results, and you look through those and those look good. But then when you run everything or go further and develop more code, you may notice that, hey, this issue I thought I fixed earlier is appearing, and that's because your results were cached. Like it just keeps showing you the same set of data. So you need to look at another sample of data in order to make sure that whatever issue you thought you resolved was truly resolved, because in some cases it may not be. It may have just fixed that one record and it was a bigger or a different issue that you thought you resolved earlier, and it's not resolved, you know? So one of the ways around that is to do a random sample of your data. So you can, here it's called a table sample. You can run that piece to get like a random selection of data and results, which should be different from the results that I pulled earlier. Well, it would have been great if I showed you guys that was results. So let's see if I can pull that. The limit 2000. Yeah, so this should have pulled back the same results I pulled earlier, because it should have cached the results. But yeah, you can see that it's different than the random sample that I pulled earlier. So yeah, that's all I wanted to discuss in this video, is just like why we typically avoid a select all, just to one, optimize our queries. Also, the databases are a shared resource, and or your company may be paying for the storage that you're, or the data you're, you know, pulling back. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. In the next video, I would like to go ahead and further develop the code that we started, and we will go into left joins. I've made a video on this before, but feel like we can revamp it, update it, and I'll explain what a left join does, why I only use left joins typically instead of like right, and because there's right and left joins, and I just use left joins is what I'm trying to say. I still do inner joins, I still do unions. Those are topics for another video, but when it comes to left and right joins, I only use a left join. So that's going to be it. If you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.